Starting from relaxation. The relaxation methods supplements the three core practices of heartfulness. Compared to those practices, the method of recent is a recent addition. Furthermore, the relaxation method is not strictly a spiritual practice, as its main purpose is to relax the body. So please underline, it's an optional practice. However, physical relaxation also provides us with mental and emotional calmness, which facilitates deeper meditation. For this reason, we often use the relaxation method just prior to meditation. So essentially, it provides mental and emotional calmness along with physical calmness. The method can also be used on its own as a simple stress relief tool according to the preference. So it's a standalone tool also, apart from its use along with meditation. I vividly remember my introduction to the relaxation method. While sitting with Daji in his office, he turned to me and said, "Let me show you how to relax." He proceeded to guide me through the steps of method, pausing thereby shortly between each one to allow its effect to settle. Now, this is very important. Many people do the relaxation method without pausing in between. Now, if you do not pause in between, you are not allowing for the manifestation of the suggestion that you have given during the relaxation. So, it does not relax you as much. So, after every instruction, you have to allow some time for uh, the impact to be felt by the Abhyasi, and that is the pause that you have to give. The more better you become at giving the pause, the better will be the results of relaxation. When he finished speaking, I found such stillness within myself that I did not want to move a single muscle. I did not feel like opening my eyes, and I did not even feel like having a single thought. In fact, my state of relaxation was so profound that it was as if I was meditating. Now, 1 year later, we discussed why he added the relaxation method to the heartfulness practice. I think the relaxation came more easily in the early times, he said. Our lifestyle was different then. These days, we have to consciously relax ourselves. See what state we have to come to. Now we have to make efforts to achieve effortlessness. Effortlessness is essential in meditation, but instead we tend to apply both physical and mental efforts. As we sit in meditation, we constantly adjust ourselves, we adjust our body, we adjust our thoughts, we adjust our awareness. We make repeated attempts to rest our unsettled consciousness. In all this moment, what can we possibly derive rest? It only makes us further unsettled. The search for stillness ends up creating its opposite. Then we become tense and we become stressed. I can tell you to be effortless. I can tell you to be open and to be understanding, to be non insistent. And you agree? Yes. You say, I will not expend any efforts in meditation. I will not seek anything. I will not demand anything. But what happens when you actually meditate? He let the question linger for some time. There was once a little boy who lived in the foothills of Himalayas. One morning he woke up and saw a yogi flying in the sky. The little boy was impressed. The more he thought about the flying yogi, the more he wanted to be able to fly like him. He decided to track him down. He packed a small bag and left early in the morning. After seeking, after asking around and taking a few wrong turns, some villagers directed him to the hut of this man. I want to fly like you, said the boy. The yogi said, why, okay, why not? I'll teach you. But for that, you will have to stay with me for many years as my servant. On the first full moon of your 15th year, I will teach you the method. So the boy stayed with him. He carried water from the well, gathered firewood, cooked all the yogi's meals. But none of this hard work bothered him at all. He was too excited that he would be able to fly. Eventually, that day came. Filled with joy, the teenager bounded into his guru's room. Tonight is the full moon night. My boss, please tell me how to fly. Sure, I'll tell you. I'll help you, said the yogi. Tonight, meditate at midnight, but whatever may happen, don't think of the monkeys. They may jump in your mind, they may dance, they may try to attack you, but you don't think of them. Then the teaching will come to you. So the boy said, oh, it's very simple. I can do this. No monkeys. At midnight, he sat on the top of the roof and closed his eyes. First thing, the monkeys came into his mind. I'm not supposed to think of monkeys, he thought. He tried not to think of them, but the monkeys kept coming. All night long, he fought with the monkeys. In the morning, he went back to the yogi and said, then this method is rubbish. You shouldn't have told me anything about the monkeys. You see, the boy lost his dream of flying because he was so focused on not thinking about monkeys. By trying not to think about them, monkeys came instead of teaching. Trying not to do something is counterproductive. Please underline that. Trying not to do something is counterproductive. And even if you somehow are able to consciously drop your efforts, you will still make subliminal efforts. In other words, subconscious efforts. You make unconscious efforts. You cannot help yourself. Effort is difficult to stop, you see. To enforce a state of effortlessness upon yourself requires the biggest possible effort you can make. It's counterproductive. Why are we so effortful by nature? Effort is rooted in our primal state of restlessness. Please underline. Effort is rooted in the primal state of restlessness. That is a reflection of the show that we had at the start. It is based on the soul's inherent need to return to its original state to unite with the source. This is what this restlessness really is, you see, and that is also what turns us into spiritual seekers. In all this restlessness, you are searching for something. You try to escape the dissatisfaction and unsettledness that you feel in the present moment. So you want to go away from dissatisfaction and unsettledness. Furthermore, you hope that the next moment will bring contentment and peace. Meanwhile, you are afraid of repeating your past, a past that only led you to your present state of unsettledness. In all this, you miss out on the endless possibilities of the present moment. Calmness eludes you, inspiration eludes you. You see, we only drop our efforts when we become content. But we can only be content when we finally drop our efforts. So it's a paradox, I said. It's a catch 22, said Daji. In the mundane world, we are accustomed to making efforts in order to attain a certain result. In fact, no result comes without any effort. A hungry person can only drop their search for food once they have eaten. Eating will, Fasting will not fill their stomach. In spirituality, however, different laws apply. In spirituality, the act of dropping your hunger is the only thing that feeds you. Please underline this. In materiality, we have to eat in order to make the hunger go away. In spirituality, we have to drop your hunger and that's the only way that you can feed you. The true state emerges when we have dropped off everything, including our search, our efforts, and our own selves. Then the self manifests in its transcendental beauty, the real beauty. In dropping your search, you become open to that which you seek. In dropping yourself, you become the very thing that you seek. So see the difference between the material search versus spiritual search. In spiritual search, we drop the efforts to reach the thing. In materiality, we actually increase the search. Daji first. Of course, to abandon all efforts doesn't mean to say that you should stop meditating, he said. Meditate more and more. In fact, dropping your search only means that you drop your searching attitude in meditation. Please underline. Dropping the search is you are dropping of the searching attitude in meditation. You just wait for the things to unfold itself. You are welcoming anything that unfolds from within. That is the approach that you have in meditation. You don't look for this or that. You just wait for things to unfold and see what comes out. So you are not searching for something in specific. You are searching something which is beyond the specific. You drop your effortful, insistent approach. Action is necessary in order to achieve anything. And action is the key of Karma Yoga, I said. Yes, Daji said. So we must meditate. Action is necessary. So we must meditate. We must practice. We must act. But our action should be effortless. They should be done with ease. Hope you got the difference. Our action should be effortless and at ease during meditation, unlike other actions where it is effortful. So, what we drop in meditation is not action itself. We do the meditation, but we drop off the searching attitude in meditation. Now, but effortless action only arises when we have been transformed from the inside out. On its own, relaxation cannot achieve this. Please underline this. Relaxation cannot change you from within. Only meditation does. However, the mental stillness that it produces triggers a greater receptivity to the divine impulse that is truly responsible for our transformation. So, how does relaxation help? It actually triggers mental stillness that actually makes us more receptive to the divine impulse from within, which actually causes transformation. You see, when you are filled with tension and worries, we tend to deflect the higher help that comes through transmission. By relaxing ourselves, we actually get greater benefit from the transmission. So the relaxation method is a kind of lubricant which allows the real spiritual work to flow unimpeded or unhindered. Exactly, said Daji. The purpose of relaxing the body prior to meditation is only to facilitate that divine work. When we are in a deeply relaxed state, our interference in the process is minimized and we become more receptive. So essentially, the relaxation makes you more receptive. We become open to the subtle showers of transmission that soothe our meditative hearts. Nice. Nice. So I'll stop here. I think the next part is that we are going to talk about the relaxation method and then you can read about that meditation method. I'll just finish this paragraph and then we can take some questions. The relaxation method consists of a set of sequential suggestions that help you to relax. It is best when used immediately prior to meditation, but we can also use it whenever we feel the need. You can also help others to relax by reciting the suggestions to them, as Dadi did for me. There is no need to memorize these suggestions verbatim. By understanding the essence of the relaxation method, your own methods may intuitively emerge. After some time, you won't even require the method. You won't need to go through the entire process in such a systematic way. Within the space of a single breath, you will be able to relax yourself completely. So today morning, there were some questions about relaxation method. Is it necessary all the time? Because there are 3 times in which we meditate. We can meditate in the midnight. We can meditate in the early morning before sunrise. We can also meditate during the daytime. Relaxation method is most important or more necessary when the mind is already running out, as happens during the daytime. The mind is already running out to the external objects. But before sunrise, we are in a pretty relaxed state of mind. At that time, the relaxation method can be optional. If you have woken up from a, say, dreadful dream, then you would probably require relaxation method before you go into meditation. But if you have woken up from a very deep sleep and there are no dreams or nothing going on in your mind, then there is no need for relaxation at all in the early morning. In the midnight, since we more likely are going to wake up from the deep sleep state, it's quite likely that we don't require the relaxation method when we actually meditate in the midnight. So this is one thing that we need to remember. The second point we need to remember is we might require the relaxation method initially when we are new to meditation. But as we proceed and become more and more adept at meditation, the need for the relaxation process should actually gradually drop off. So if after 25 years of meditation, if you still feel that you have to start with the relaxation process, that means there is something wrong with the way that you have approached meditation. So as we progress in meditation and we become good at meditation, the need for the relaxation method gradually drops off. So I've just given you 2 scenarios where the need for the relaxation gradually changes depending on the time when we meditate, and secondly, depending on how we actually progress in meditation. So with these two clarifications, I'll just pause here for a few minutes. I'll take any questions. So that's why Darji said relaxation process is optional. It is not a mandatory spiritual process like the other three things. The meditation, the cleaning and prayer. They are mandatory. Relaxation is optional. Basically, relaxation helps us achieving that mental and emotional and physical stillness or calmness, which will allow us to absorb or get more benefit from the transmission that we are going to receive during the sitting or the meditation. So that's the essential essence. It's going to help us become more receptive to the transmission. Okay. So any questions you can ask. The next part that we are going to now read about meditation is far more subtle. So I think maybe you all need to relax when we go towards that meditation part, which is very, very subtle. So there'll be lot of many subtle points that many people here might have overlooked about meditation, and that is what we'll focus our light on in the next part of the session. So everyone is okay with relaxation?
We're okay. Okay about relaxation, brother. But you mentioned midnight meditation. That is new to me. Sandhya is, I know, 3 Sandhyas. I thought the evening, morning.
Midnight meditation was something that Babuji used to emphasize a lot, and you actually derive a lot of benefit from midnight meditation. In fact, if you just look at it in a slightly different way, in the morning when we wake up, we are in attachment or in alignment with the gross body and the things outside which is happening. So that's why we require relaxation to bring the attention back on the body and then turn it inwards. During the early morning, during the Sandhya, we are in the subtle body level. So our attention is still not very firmly established in the external direction, nor on the physical body. So the need for the relaxation in the early morning is quite optional. In the midnight, we are in close identification with the causal body. So the need for relaxation does not arise at all in the midnight. So at 3 different times, we are in identification and alignment with 3 different bodies. In the midnight, we are in alignment with the causal body, so there is no need for relaxation. The mind is already turned inwards. In the Sandhya, the mind is aligned with the subtle body. So, depending on certain states, it might require relaxation, and many other times it might not require relaxation. But the need for relaxation is definitely less in the early morning, in the Sandhya, compared to other times during the waking state. But during the waking state, when the mind is already established its run towards the outward direction and also closely identified with the physical body, relaxation becomes absolutely necessary, especially when you are new to meditation. So whether we require relaxation or not, it depends on what is it that we are actually identified with at what time of the day or night. That actually determines whether we actually require relaxation or not. Of course, this is not something given here in this literature, but that's how it is.
Thank you, brother.
So shall we move on now? So there are a lot of subtle points in the next 10-15 pages. So please keep an eye. Okay. So I have not gone through the relaxation process itself because that is not going to be something that you are going to get as part of the exam, very unlikely. But the point is you just need to know what is the real essence behind this relaxation process. How to meditate. Having fixed time and place and found a comfortable pose, we are now ready to meditate. We gently close our eyes and center ourselves, our awareness in the heart. Now, please underline, center our awareness in the heart. Supposing that the divine light is present therein and it is attracting us within. So, please underline that particular point. Centering our awareness in the heart. Now, this is something most of the people overlook. What does it mean to suppose that the divine light is present in the heart? I asked. It's a hypothesis, Daji said. At first, we don't know what is inside the heart. We are waiting to find out. Meditation is an experiment in which let's test this hypothesis that divine light is present in our heart. The proof of this experiment comes when we actually experience it through feelings. So divine light is not something to be seen, but it is something to be felt. So please remember, the divine light is not something to be seen, but it is something to be felt. How do we conduct this meditative experiment? I asked. We relax and gently allow our awareness to rest in the heart. Again, now he is repeating. We allow our awareness to rest in the heart, said Daji. Divine light is not a thought, but a feeling. This feeling cannot be manufactured. Therefore, we should not make attempts to think about it or feel it. Meditation is really a form of relaxed waiting without any expectation. Therefore, we do not reportedly remind ourselves that divine light is present in the heart and it is attracting me with inward. So we don't remind, we just say it once and then start the meditation. We don't need to keep refreshing this idea. It is not a mantra that we repeat. Divine light is in my heart, divine light is in my heart. You don't repeat it like a mantra. That would only disturb us. It would be artificial and effortful. Rather, the thought of divine light must disappear from our mind in order to give way to the actual experience of the light in the heart. Please remember this. The thought of the divine light should disappear from the heart in order that we can actually experience the light in the heart. The object of meditation is something that we feel and not something that we think about. Now, this is a very fundamental thing that many people make mistake. That they keep thinking about the divine light. Even today morning, there was a new Abhyasi who came, and when we asked them to do this, they said through the meditation, they were just thinking about what is this divine light, where is this divine light, how is this divine light, that's all. When we keep thinking about the divine light, we are actually interfering with the work of the meditation. But the definition of meditation is to think continuously about one thing. Now, this is the Oxford definition of meditation. To think continuously about one thing. Yes, said Daji, and we are continuously and totally attentive to this idea, but it is deeper attentiveness, a subconscious attentiveness. Please underline this. It's not a conscious attentiveness, but it's a subconscious attentiveness. People tend to misunderstand this. If you try to hold it as a conscious thought, you're only concentrating, and that is not meditation. Now, the difference between meditation and concentration. In concentration, we think about a particular thing at the conscious mind level. In meditation, we are paying attention to one thing at the subconscious level. What triggers this deeper attentiveness? I asked. Your intention to meditate, Daji said. That is sufficient. Consciousness is vast, and most of it lies beyond our conscious awareness. The portion of the consciousness of which we are aware is only a minute fraction of its totality. The thought of divine light pervades these deeper realms of consciousness that are beyond our awareness. So, we do not need to wrangle with the thought of the divine light at any conscious level. Even if with this thought never occurs to your conscious mind, rest assured that you are still meditating. So, we don't need to fight with this thought of divine light. The thought of the divine light helps us to navigate through the deeper layers of the consciousness. Please underline. The thought of divine light pervades those deeper realms of consciousness that are beyond our awareness. And hence, once we say that there is a divine light in our heart and meditate, automatically we start going deeper and deeper into the consciousness, the subconsciousness. So, what do we actually do in meditation? I asked. Simply relax with your heart-centered awareness and wait, Daji said. Simply relax into your heart-centered awareness. This method is almost too simple, I said. Reality is simple, and to achieve a simple thing, we must adopt simple means. Babuji used to say that it is easier to pick up a needle with your fingers than with a crane. If only I had known about this simple meditation, how simple meditation is back when I first started, I said. But you learn through experience, now that is the best way. But the problem is, if you have to learn through experience, you probably will lose a lot of time. Many abhyasis have actually lost a lot of time because they don't know how to correctly meditate. And these are finer points that we need to teach every abhyasi so that within the first few weeks of meditation, they should be able to properly meditate without losing time. When I started, I was in total loss as to how to handle the idea of divine light in the heart, I said. Whenever I asked questions, people used to tell me not to think so much. This is exactly what preceptors tell even now also, not to think so much. So most of the time, I just ignore the idea of divine light. And even without the thought, I went into deep meditation. But on some days, I would think, okay, today I'm going to really focus on, I'm going to really meditate properly. I'm going to think of the divine light continuously. Those days, there was no meditation at all. It was only struggle. The concept of divine light is extremely subtle, said Gaji. Babuji called it the divine light as a light without luminosity. Now, the definition contains a big hint. At first glance, it can make us scratch our heads. Isn't luminosity the defining character of light? Yet, by removing the luminosity from the picture, we learn something vital. We learn that divine light cannot be visualized or imagined in any way. Please underline this. Divine light cannot be imagined or visualized in any way. Page number 92. It cannot be electric light, it cannot be candle light, it cannot be daylight, moonlight, or light from any material source. It is not something that we can see. So, what it is something that we feel. That is why we involve the heart in the process. The heart is the organ of feeling, after all. So, why do we focus on the heart? Because the organ of feeling is the heart. The attempt to think about divine light tends to get in the way of feeling it. It keeps us tied to the mental plane and prevents us from going deeper. So we have to take this thought in a very subtle manner. At most, we gently remind ourselves that divine light is present in the heart and that is attracting us within, towards the source. We do this once at the beginning, and in fact, even that much is unnecessary. It is such a natural process, everything happens by itself, you see. Why not simply meditate on the source? I asked. Why even bring divine light into this? How would you conceive of the source? Daji replied. I had no source. Answer. The source is infinite, he said. It defies thought because thought is finite. So if you think of the infinite, no, we finished relaxation, sister. After that, we are proceeding further. It defies thought. It even defies unconscious thought. No matter how you conceive of it, it won't be the real thing. So you cannot conceive of the real thing at all. It is beyond anything that we are capable of doing. The source is infinite. Divine light, on the other hand, is graspable. It may be subtle, but at least we can experience it. We can feel it in our hearts. This subtle feeling pulls us further inwards and it takes us beyond light actually and delivers to the source itself. So we take the help of the divine light to actually go beyond the divine light to reach the source. That is what we are doing. And that's the reason why we give the suggestion of divine light in the heart. So we catch hold of the divine light, we cross over the divine light, or we go beyond the divine light to actually reach the source. So the reason we meditate on divine light is that we cannot meditate directly on the source. I said, exactly. But the light comes from the source and it draws us towards the source as well. In this process of approaching the source, we go deeper and deeper into meditation. We achieve greater and greater depths of samadhi. Please underline this. We achieve greater and greater depths of samadhi. Now, it is quite possible that in the initial few weeks or few months, we might actually go into the state of samadhi. But we have not achieved different depths of samadhi. As we go deeper and deeper into the different depths of samadhi, at some point of time, we are going to hit what is called as turiya. And if we go further deeper into that state of samadhi or beyond turiya, we enter into the state of turiyatit. So this is in response to a question I think somebody asked about the relationship between samadhi and turiya. Now samadhi is the route with which we can actually gradually go towards turiya and turiyatit. Samadhi is the path. But samadhi itself is not turiya. Samadhi itself is not turiyatit. But samadhi is the state that we actually gradually become more and more, what do you say, deeper or depths of samadhi we go into, and that will eventually deliver us to the state of turiya. And from that turiya state, we actually enter into the state of turiya tit. This is the journey of meditation. So in meditation, we gradually get established deeper and deeper and reach the stage of samadhi. And in the stage of samadhi, we gradually go deeper and deeper, and that will establish us in the state of turiya. And in the turiya, we gradually become more and more deeper. That will establish us in the state of turiya atit. This is how we actually proceed in meditation towards the source. But let's back up for a second. I said, it isn't always the case that we close our eyes and immediately we plunge into samadhi. Often there is a lapse of time in between. That is when people experience the most difficulty because they have to contend with so many distracting thoughts. So my question is, how should we handle the thoughts? Now, this is a question that you are going to very much get in the examination also. So please keep an eye on this. How do you handle the thoughts during meditation? Yes, thoughts are the number one complaint, he chuckled. But to come with the expectation that I must have a thoughtless state is the wrong approach. We get carried away by these popular notions. Just as the ears are for hearing, the eyes are for seeing, the mind is also for thinking. But when you are absorbed in a film that you are watching, you are not distracted by your thoughts. But that does not mean that you don't have any thoughts. Yes, you are just inattentive to them, I said. Right. Because you are more attentive to the activity that you are witnessing on the screen. So the inattentiveness is automatic because you are attentive to the thing that you are engrossed in. The same thing happens in meditation. When we become more attentive to the heart than to our thoughts, they are no longer bother us. This becomes easier when we start to feel the presence of the divine light. So initially, we might not even feel the presence of the divine light. But as and when we start feeling the presence of divine light, our attention keeps focused on this divine light so that we are not distracted by the thoughts that we are getting. We don't pay attention to it. You may not be aware that what you are feeling is the divine light. You may hardly even notice it when it comes, in the same way that you don't notice the moment when you fall asleep. So this is very important. Most of the time we don't even notice the time when we fall asleep. That's the moment that we fall asleep, we don't even know. Likewise, the moment when the divine light comes, we don't even know, and we might not even be able to perceive it. However, we will be staying in touch with the divine light. Then there is no longer affected by thoughts. It just happens, then you are no longer affected by thoughts. In other words, something is actually holding you within, and you are least bothered about what thoughts you are getting. Thoughts and emotions are like the waves on the surface of the ocean. Please underline this. Thoughts and emotions are like the waves on the surface of the ocean. They may disturb the surface or the sailor who stays upon the surface, but not the whale which swims in the depth. In deep meditation, we sink into those depths. Even when a gale blows, it remains above the surface and we remain unaffected. We are not affected at all. So when we are in the depths of the meditation, we are not impacted by the thoughts which is rising at the surface. But what do we do before we sink into deep meditation? I asked again, how do we handle our thoughts then? Accept them. So first one is not to pay attention. Second one is accept them. Love them even. Thoughts are not your enemies. If you fight with the thoughts, you will surely end up losing. The more you fight with your thoughts, the stronger they become. In fact, we can bring in Newton's third law here. In the physical dimension, every action produces an equal and opposite reaction. On the mental plane, the rule applies in an unpredictable way. There is still an opposite reaction, but it is not equal. It is disproportionate. It is like throwing a stone into the ocean and getting a tsunami in return. So don't fight with your thoughts, just let them be. So this is another way of handling the thoughts. Accept them, love them, and just let them be. Of course, that doesn't mean that you should indulge either. So you should not indulge in them. In other words, you should not go behind the thoughts and go on making a chain of thoughts. Often we get pumped up by certain thoughts that impress us. We also get worried by our negative thoughts. Thinking is okay, but indulging is never good. Really, thoughts should be like the wallpaper in the room. You may appreciate it or you as a beautiful print or you may dislike it, but either way, it does not bother you or obsess you. It does not prevent you from carrying on with your activities. In the same way, your thoughts need not hinder your meditation. So we should not build a chain of thoughts. In other words, we should not indulge in thoughts. This is another way of handling the thoughts. But sometimes the thoughts seem to ambush us. Then it is difficult to stay aloof or poised. Babaji pointed out that when you pour wine from a bottle, it leaves from the same opening from which it entered, said Daji. The thoughts we have in meditation are like wine that are flowing out of the bottle. Please underline this. The thoughts that we have in meditation are like the wine going out of the bottle. They have been inside us all along, even if we are not aware of their presence. We only become aware of them when we are meditating and they start leaving us. Thoughts come only to leave, you see. So let them come. Again, please underline. Thoughts come only to leave, let them come. That's another way of handling the thoughts. Sometimes we experience really intense thoughts and emotions during meditation. They can be unsettling. The reason is that we tend to repress such thoughts and feelings as the normal outcome in the normal course of our lives. You have thoughts that you think are bad and you say no, 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 and push them into the recesses of your subconscious. That does not get rid of them, though. They remain inside you, shading your experience and shaping your behavior in the subtle ways. Please underline this. They remain in your subconscious, shaping your behavior and shading your experience. In meditation, such thoughts resurface. They are like the bubbles, hot air bubbles that rush upwards in a pot of boiling water. Know that they are in the process of leaving you and pay them no mind. Now, this is a very good example. Air bubbles that rush up in the pot of a boiling water. Really, our body and mind does get heated up during meditation. So, like the air bubbles which are at the bottom of the water, once you heat the water, the air bubbles start escaping out of the water. Likewise, when we heat our system, the body and the mind, because of the process of meditation, the samskaras at the bottom start getting heated up and they start raising to the surface as thoughts. And that is why we get more thoughts during meditation than when we are engaged in other activities. During other activities, we are not actually making the heat in the system go up. But in meditation, we are actually making the heat in the system go up. At the subconscious level, when the heat in the subconscious level increases, what happens is all the samskaras which are at the bottom of the subconscious, they start raising to the surface. That is why meditation is also called as tapas. So that example of the air bubble, once we heat the pot of a boiling water, is a very, very good example. And that is exactly what happens to us during the meditation. I'm always happy when someone complains of a turbulent meditation because it shows that they have released something that they were harboring inside. So I think we should refrain from judging our meditative experience. What is far more significant is the way that you feel after the meditation is complete, not during. It is meditation's long-term effects that we are really after. Please underline this. It is meditation's long-term effect that we are really after. We should not worry unduly too much about what exactly happens during the meditation. But how to handle a difficult experience in meditation? I said, like when your thoughts just run away from you, just remind yourself that you are meditating. This is another way of handling the thoughts. Just remind yourself that you are meditating, said Daji. That should be enough. If that doesn't help, then open your eyes for 30 seconds or so. That will clear the condition and then you can continue your meditation. So these are two another methods of handling the thoughts. Open your eyes or just remind yourself that you are meditating. A time also comes when we do enter into a thoughtless state. This happens when we go further into the subtler realms of consciousness. The great Swami Vivekananda once said consciousness is a mere film between the two oceans of subconscious and superconsciousness. Let's look at these two words, sub and super. By pairing the prefix sub to the word conscious, we see that the subconscious is beneath our consciousness, conscious awareness. Conversely, the superconsciousness is above our conscious awareness. So the sub and superconsciousness are both beyond our conscious awareness. Please underline this. So the subconscious and the superconscious are both beyond the level of the conscious awareness. Yet one is lower unconsciousness while the other one is higher. The subconscious is vast, as is the superconsciousness. In fact, both are infinite. With yogic practice, our conscious awareness expands into both of them. Please underline this. With the practice of the meditation or yoga, our conscious awareness should expand into the sub and the superconsciousness. When we sleep at night, we dive deep into the oceans of the subconscious. Actually, this occurs through a very special state of yogic sleep called as Yoga Nidra. We will discuss about it when we take up the subject of prayer. It is also necessary to purify the subconscious. It is filled with the remnants of the past experience. It's also home to our lower instincts and desires. Please underline. The subconscious is filled with our past experience and it's also home to our lower instincts and desires. We'll also go into the subject more deeply when we take up the topic of cleaning. Now, let us discuss the superconsciousness. It is the godly realm. And in meditation, we soar into the endless sky of the superconsciousness. It is from there that the wisdom descends. Now, I want you to underline these three lines now, the next three lines. How do you know that we are in superconsciousness state? These are the experience that you will have when you go into the superconsciousness. What happens? It is from there that wisdom descends. It is from there that inspiration strikes your heart. In the superconsciousness, we are suffused with energy from the source. Please underline. In fact, we just had a discussion about it in the morning and we came up with a nice acronym or mnemonic. You can say when you enter into the state of superconsciousness, you feel nice. NICE. What is this nice? Nice means N stands for newness, I stands for inspiration, C stands for clarity, and E stands for energy. So whenever we actually touch the superconsciousness in meditation, we actually become infused with these four things. We experience a feeling of newness, we experience inspiration, we experience clarity, and we also experience renewed energy. And it's very easy to remember. When we touch superconsciousness, we feel nice. And you just need to know what is nice means. NICE. Okay? In meditation, I'll just stop here. I think the next part is a bit more, even more subtle. So we'll just take that as we go around. Any questions till what we have read about the subconscious, superconscious, about how to handle thoughts? Because that is a very sure shot question in exam. How do you handle the thoughts? It could come in a long question or a short question, or it could be match the following, or it could be true or false in whichever way. But definitely some questions about how do you handle the thoughts will be there in the paper. Anand Kumar, go ahead.
No, sorry.
So if you just go back and look through this, the Daj is given almost like 5 to 6 methods how to handle the thoughts during the meditation. I think if you can write that, I think that would be pretty good. So these are questions that you should not lose marks. And this question about how to handle the thoughts in meditation can come about both during the closed book or the open book part of the exam. Okay? So any question? Because the next part is even more subtle than what we have read.
Brother, what does C stand for in night?
Sorry, what are?
What does C stand for in night?
See, NICE. N is newness.
Yeah.
I is inspiration. C
Okay.
is clarity. Clarity is the wisdom.
Clarity. Okay.
So wisdom, another word is clarity. And last one is E, which is energy, renewed energy. So C stands for clarity, in bracket wisdom.
Thank you, Guru.
In fact, just yesterday, one of the Abhyasis who came for meditation was exactly saying the same thing. Nowadays, I'm actually developing clarity in everything that I'm doing in my life. And clarity generally is felt not during the meditation, it is felt outside the meditation. So that's an indication that during the meditation, you are actually entering into the state of superconsciousness. So there are many things that are actually felt outside the meditation. That is why it's very important for us to be watchful outside the meditation also, not just during the meditation. Okay? Shall we continue then? So if anybody else any other questions, you can ask later on. In meditation, our awareness expands through the superconsciousness. At first, we may not have any experience of it at all. It is as if we are in a state of deep sleep. That is the first stage of samadhi. But slowly we become familiar with the superconscious and we become aware of it in that state also. Gradually, we gain control over it, command over it. Then is it still superconsciousness? This is the question Daji asks. If we become aware and if we develop command over it, is that part still superconsciousness or now has it become part of the consciousness? So Joshua is not able to understand the question. What do you mean? I said. When you are conscious of it, it is no longer above your conscious awareness. Just now Daji said, what is superconsciousness? It is something above the conscious awareness. Now, if that part of the superconsciousness becomes part of your conscious awareness, it is no longer above. So it has become your normal state of consciousness. The superconsciousness is something that is always beyond. It is what you cannot access. So what may be a normal state of a conscious awareness for you may be a state of superconsciousness for others. So it's a relative term. Yes, he said. We can also accelerate this process of moving into the superconsciousness by using two supplemental practices called as point A meditation and point B cleaning. But these practices are best explained in person by a heartfulness trainer after we have become established in the essential heartfulness practices. So how do we actually accelerate our journey through the superconsciousness? By practicing point A meditation and point B cleaning. That's what we do. So those are the two tools that help us evolve through the superconsciousness faster. This is again examination questions. How do you evolve through the superconsciousness faster? In our journey, we move beyond superconsciousness also. In fact, we move beyond consciousness altogether. Consciousness, superconsciousness, subconsciousness, we move beyond all these three. Consciousness is infinite, whether we are speaking of the subconscious or the superconsciousness. But that infinity is supported by another infinity behind it, which is called as the potentiality of the consciousness. Daji stood up and disappeared into his bedroom. A minute later, he returned with the book in hand, Efficacy of Raja Yoga, written by Babuji in 1944. Daji started to read. Consciousness is not our goal. It is a toy for children to play with. We have to reach a point where consciousness assumes its true form, what it really ought to be. We have to make a search for the mother tincture from which medicines are actually prepared. We are searching for the potentiality from which creates the consciousness. And if that too is gone, then we find ourselves on the verge of true reality. Pure and simple. This philosophy is too high to be described adequately in words. So we go from the consciousness towards potentiality of the consciousness, and when we cross that also, we are now in the realm of reality, border of reality. Daji closed the book. And reality is another infinity that supports the potentiality. So the consciousness is an infinity that is supported by the potential infinity, potentiality. Now this potentiality, which is an infinite, is now supported by the reality, which is also infinite. You see, our development covers a spectrum that moves towards infinite subtlety. We begin with consciousness, move towards potentiality, and ultimately end up in reality. emerge into reality. Thus, we must go beyond that too. Okay. Now, how long do we meditate? Before I began heartfulness, I used to meditate for precisely 20 minutes at a time. I would set an alarm and sit with closed eyes until it rang. Perhaps I learned from this from a meditative class that I had taken when the instructor would ring a bell when meditation was over. This is Joshua telling you. When I started practicing heartfulness, I continued my habit of setting an alarm for 20 minutes. However, that ring soon started to disturb me because it would come while I was still immersed in meditation. So it started settling. I started setting the timer for 1 hour instead. But then I found that I would naturally come out of meditation exactly 5 minutes before the bell rang. Soon it occurred to me that the timer was only interfering with the process, so I never used it again. I told Daji about these experiences and he said, yes, it's too artificial to set any time limit in advance. In fact, we should never set any agenda in meditation, whether it's time, whether it's expectation, whether it's experience, whether it's an emotion or nice feeling. We should not have any agenda in meditation. We shouldn't impose any condition at all. We have to be open and in a state of wonder and unknowingness. Please underline this. We should be in a state of wonder and unknowingness. Sometimes we might think, I have to go to work soon, so let me meditate for 15 minutes. The giver knows your time constraints very well. Perhaps you would have finished your sitting in 30 minutes, 30 seconds, but you are insisting on 15 minutes. But in that case, I am being more generous than the grace giver. I said, he needs 30 seconds, but I am allowing him 15 minutes. Maybe, said Daji. But what do you think will happen in those 15 minutes? Instead of meditating on the endless, you will meditate on the time or limitation. You will be constantly aware that you have to stand up in a few minutes. You are focusing on the quantity of meditation rather than the quality. If there is no quality, there can be no. Is there any use of quantity? If there is no quality, what is the point of having quantity? So when we meditate with time in mind, we are only focusing on the quantity, not the quality. Sometimes when I meditate, I found that it's over very quickly. At other times, I find that an entire hour has gone by. What makes meditation complete? This was another question in the examination. What makes meditation complete? It is complete when you hit a satisfactory depth of consciousness. That is it. Please underline this. Meditation is complete when you hit a satisfactory depth of consciousness. Babaji recommended 1 hour. When people complained, he reduced it to half an hour, but he used to say that 1 hour is best. He had observed that people often take that long to reach a satisfactory depth of meditation. But don't run with this idea and say, okay, now I'm going to meditate for 1 hour. In that case, again, you will still be meditating on the idea of time and not on the divine light. So forget time, just meditate. I have been told that Babaji never meditated for more than 2 to 3 minutes at a time. He could instantly plunge into his inner depth. That is the answer. He could instantly plunge into his inner depth, Daji said. If that's all the time that you require, it is sufficient. If it takes you 1 hour, then that's also good. What if you don't achieve any depth at all, even in 1 hour? Save it for next time, said Daji. So it did not happen today. Fine, let me try it again tomorrow. And then if you are really avid and you have extra time, meditate a second time, but give yourself a little break. After 15 minutes at least. Take 15 minutes at least. Without this 15 minutes break, meditation will create a slight negative effect. Please underline this. If you do not give break between meditations, it can have a negative impact on you. What determines how quickly we can dive deep into ourselves? It depends on the orientation of your awareness and flexibility of the consciousness. Please underline this. How long does it take for us to go to the depth of the meditation? Depends on our orientation towards the orientation of your awareness and the flexibility of the consciousness. Now, Daji is using the words awareness and consciousness separately. Please keep that in mind. Imagine that now he's telling the relationship between consciousness and awareness. Please focus here. Imagine that consciousness is a big circle. Its center is the core of your being, the ultimate source. The circumference represents our surface level awareness. Please underline this. The circumference represents our awareness. It's our normal state of consciousness in which we interact with the world via the senses. Usually, our attention is unidirectional. Either it can go out or it can come in. It moves in one direction at a time. In meditation, it moves inwards to the core. In our daily activities, it moves outwards away from the core. It flows through the senses in the direction of the circumference. Please underline this. It flows through the senses in the direction of the circumference, and the circumference is the awareness. So if your consciousness is nimble and flexible, it can easily switch directions. But if your consciousness is cumbersome, it's like a big cargo ship that requires 4 tugboats just to turn around. When we are accustomed to an external orientation, we tend to find it difficult to turn our awareness inwards. Then meditation takes a bit longer. But with daily practice and with the help of transmission, we develop a nimble consciousness or a flexible consciousness. Now we can move in either direction at will. So remember, one of the benefits of meditation with Pranamati is our flexibility of consciousness. We are able to turn our attention either outwards or inwards at will. However, as we develop even further, consciousness stops jumping back and forth, turning inwards and outwards. It stops being unidirectional. It rather expands in both directions at once. You are aware of what is happening around you externally, but at the same time, you are also moving towards the source within. Furthermore, you are aware of what is happening in between the two. You have neither an inner nor an outer orientation. Your consciousness is expansive and your attention is inclusive. Please underline this. So from a unidirectional approach to consciousness, we actually become multidirectional or expansive in consciousness, and our attention becomes inclusive. When this is the case, meditation no longer involves any movement. You are simultaneously immersed in the center, the source, and aware of the external also. Now this takes time to reach, but Darji is talking about it as if you have reached. You are simultaneously immersed in the center while at the same time being aware of what is happening externally. That means that you don't have to turn your consciousness inward in order to meditate. In fact, meditation now becomes redundant. When you are established in that state, meditation now becomes redundant. You are in a permanent state of meditation. You see, why would you then need to sit and meditate when you are already in meditation? So if you are established in a permanent state of meditation, there is no need to separately meditate. When you try to meditate, it feels you are actually trying to do something which is not natural to you. You may have noticed that in Eastern iconography, spiritual figures are often portrayed in a meditative pose. We see this especially in the depictions of Lord Buddha. He is always seated, always serene. In reality, though, illumined individuals do not sit in continuous meditation. They are active and engaged in life. Again, please underline this. We think that illumined individuals are sitting always meditating. No, they are actually very active and engaged in life. One could be a busy emergency room doctor, for instance, busily attending to patient after patient. Despite her stressful situation, she is calm, she is peaceful. Her permanent contact with the source provides us with an inner silence that pervades the surrounding noise. Despite her stressful circumstance, she is in meditation, you see. She may not be seated like a Buddha figure, but her consciousness is Buddha-like. She has attained permanence in meditation. This is called as meditative state. So you can be asked about meditative state also. In meditative state, you don't need to sit in meditation all the time. You can be very active and engaged with life. It should not be necessary to continue the daily practice of meditation for your entire life. Each case is different, of course, but I think that if we still require this daily routine after 20 or 30 years, something must be wrong in our approach. So why are evolved individuals always portrayed in that meditative pose? I asked. Is it just a symbol? Of course, it's a symbol, said Darji. Nevertheless, we also observe that even those who are no longer require meditation still tend to maintain their meditative practice. Every morning they sit for meditation. Now, why would they do so? It is because they enjoy it. Is it a habit? Is it a formality? You can think about it. Okay. Now I'll just pause here for a few minutes. Any questions we can take before we go to the next part of meditative state. So we went through how to really correctly meditate, the subtle points of meditation, about the source, about the divine light, about the imagination, not to imagine, about the need to feel the divine light, about the use of divine light to go towards the source because the divine light is actually coming from the source. All these things we read. Then we read about the consciousness, subconsciousness, and the superconsciousness. We read about how we actually tap into superconsciousness with point A meditation and point B cleaning. We also talked about how do we know that we are actually in the superconsciousness by the use of the mnemonic NICE. NICE being N being newness, I being inspiration, C being clarity, bracket wisdom, E being energy. So when we are able to experience these four things, either by the end of the meditation or outside the meditation, that means we are tapping into the superconsciousness. And we actually proceed beyond the consciousness, all the aspects of consciousness, whether it's consciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness, eventually to reach the root or the potentiality of the consciousness. Then we cross the potentiality of the consciousness to establish ourselves in the center or reality. This is our journey in short.
Brother, when we say potentiality of consciousness, that occurs in the central region after 13th point. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
After that, you enter into the center where the reality is.
And that would be the pure state of consciousness.
Not pure state. There is no consciousness at all. That is reality. Reality is beyond consciousness, and potentiality or the root of the consciousness. Other word that is used for potentiality is the root of consciousness. So when we go beyond the root, we enter into the original state of reality in alignment with the center.
Then what are these words called? Pure state of consciousness?
That's a lower state.
Huh? What's it? What
Lower state. Pure state of consciousness comes way below. I don't know why you are confusing with reality. Reality is far ahead of consciousness. It has nothing to do with consciousness at all. It has nothing to do with even awareness. We read that in the complete works.
In the suggested readings.
One minute. When we enter into the central region, we read that we actually establish ourselves in gross identity, which has awareness. Then as we proceed through the central region, we lose that awareness. Awareness also becomes, gradually we move towards unawareness, and then gradually we move from gross identity towards refined identity or subtle identity. And with that subtle identity, we establish our connection with the center. Once we establish our connection with the center, we start leading a real life. We have the vision of the absolute, the real knowledge descends into us, and the entire system becomes divinized. These are the three things that happens once we establish connection with the center. We have the vision of the absolute, real knowledge descends into us, and our entire system, all the five koshas, all the three body, becomes divinized. The life that we lead after establishing our connection with the center is called as a real life. So where is the use of the word consciousness? Throughout the central region or near the center, we never use the word consciousness at all. So I don't know where you are bringing this word of pure consciousness from. Purity of consciousness only comes from the first point up to the 12th point. Beyond that, there is no question of any purity of consciousness. Because consciousness itself is not there. Where is the question of purity then? You only just now said that when you enter into the central region, you are entering into the root or the potentiality of the consciousness. That being the case, you have gone beyond the consciousness itself.
Thank you, brother. Very clear. Thank you.
So please do not confuse. In the center or there is only reality, which is way beyond the consciousness. So do not confuse. The highest state reality is not called as pure state of consciousness. That's the wrong description of it. Okay. Any other question? Was it something easy to grasp or was it something more difficult?
Brother?
Everything went about your head.
Brother,
Tell me.
the paragraph of the lines I'm reading, it expands in both direction at once. You are aware of what is happening inside and externally. At the same time, you are moving towards the source within. The paragraph ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, can you give any example for this? This state.
ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ? ಮೆಡಿಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದ್ರು ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಒಳಗಡೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ.
While meditating, okay.
While meditating, yes.
Okay.
And then as and when we establish in that state outside meditation, in a meditative state, we also become aware of the same thing. Even while we are engaged in the world, we are also aware in alignment with what is happening inside. That state is called as meditative state. First meditation ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. In meditation, you will have inner awareness also, outer awareness also.
Okay.
Okay, that is what happens in the meditation initially.
Okay.
After that, even while we are engaged in activities in the world, we are still aware of what is happening internally and also externally.
That means we are connected with our
Correct.
inner source.
Correct.
Is that a symbol of that state?
I don't know what is the symbol. It is the state.
Yes.
While
we are outer,
it is the state. That's all. You know
Okay.
about what is happening inner also, outer also simultaneously.
Okay, brother.
Okay.
Got the answer. Thank you.
That state, when you can get outside the meditation, even while you are doing activity, then it is called as a meditative state.
Okay. Thank you.
In a question idea?
Brother, illuminated individuals ಅಂತಾರಲ್ಲ, or they are always in constant remembrance.
Which individual?
Illuminated individuals.
Illuminated individuals are established in the state of reality without any awareness. So they are not even doing constant remembrance. Say, for example, you are traveling from Bangalore to Mysore, and you are very keen, your craving to reach Mysore is very strong. Now, when you are driving, that urge to reach Mysore soon is constantly there at the back of your mind. That is like constant remembrance. Now, once you reach Mysore, do you think that thought about Mysore is still running in your mind?
No.
No. So, an illumined individual will not be established in the state of constant remembrance. They don't require constant remembrance. They have already reached the goal. Where is the need for constant remembrance? So, even the need for constant remembrance also goes away.
Okay.
That is, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, brother, I got the answer.
Got the answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember one thing. See, once we reach the center, all these practices will drop off. The practice of meditation, meditative state will go. The practice of cleaning will go. The practice of prayer, prayerful state will go. Practice of constant remembrance will go. All these things will automatically drop off. You are permanently established in the state of the reality without your awareness. You become the reality. It's not that you are established in reality, you become the reality. That's why a knower of Brahman becomes the Brahman. That is what Upanishad says. So any person who merges in Brahman becomes the Brahman. There's no question of knowing the Brahman or something else. You become the Brahman. Likewise, the knower of reality becomes the reality. There's no question of saying that this person is established in reality because he is aware of reality. That distinction is now gone. They are established permanently in the state of reality without even awareness or any effort. That is the state of a illumined person. They are not in touch with reality. They are the reality. That's it. Okay? That is, go ahead.
Brother, I am Dheeraj. I just had one small question when you are answering to Anil, brother, that illuminated individuals doesn't need consciousness.
No,
So
doesn't need constant. No, I think you got it
constant
wrong.
remembrance.
Constant remembrance is not necessary.
Yeah. So when that reminded me of one situation where Babuji used to constantly tell that even while drinking water, I used to take permission with Lalaji. So he used to always be in his remembrance, right? So
Lalaji had merged in Babuji. Babuji was not remembering. After the merger, there is no question of remembrance. Lalaji had merged into Babuji. They had become one.
okay.
So Babuji was not remembering Lalaji. Since Lalaji was seated inside, Babuji used to take permission just by talking to Lalaji because Lalaji was also there inside. It's something like, suppose you have a guest at home and you are about to eat your breakfast. Don't you think you will also ask the guest whether they want the breakfast or not?
Yes, brother.
Exactly something similar. Lalaji had merged into Babuji. That is way beyond constant remembrance. There is no question of constant remembrance there.
Can we say that it is almost like a conjoined twins?
Exactly. Exactly. Conjoined twins at a subtle level. That's all.
Okay.
Normally, conjoined twins we talk about in the physical level. But here you are talking about at the most subtlest level of union.
Okay.
Okay.
But if
Go ahead.
asking other to drink or to take some permission, then there are two things now, brother. If one is merged, then
Do you think anyway, I think it's far high philosophy for you to grasp as of now.
okay.
But the way that constant remembrance is talked about, this state of merger comes way beyond constant remembrance. I think if you can just remember that, that will be enough, sir.
Okay.
Once you start coming more nearer to that particular state, it will be easier for you to grasp how it exactly did they live together.
Okay.
They
Thank
lived
you.
together. How did they live together? Were they constantly remembering each other? No. For example, you wear the clothes. It's always on you all the time. Do you constantly remember about the cloth?
No.
No. So when you have merged, there is no question of any constant remembrance. Of course, for the sake, for example, I have to change this cloth before I go to sleep. I might remember about the cloth at that time. But I will not remember about the cloth all the time. For example, for the last 1 hour, this cloth has been touching me in various parts of my body. Was I ever remembering about the cloth at all? Even once? No. It is
Okay.
just there so naturally. Like we don't even remember about the breath. It's there all the time. We don't even remember. In fact, we remember about the breath when something is not right. Right? Likewise, once we have achieved the stage of merger, only at certain special occasions, Babuji used to remember or ask Lalaji about it. In fact, if you read 44 Whispers, there are many instances where Lalaji says, do this or don't do that. Sometimes he says, don't eat outside. Sometimes he says, don't eat in this house. Sometimes he said, don't take anything outside and drink anything from outside. Because there was a lot of threat to Babuji's life from various sources. So Lalaji had to make sure that he could secure Babuji's life. So for that reason, he had given specific instructions to check with him before doing certain things sometimes. Not all the time, sometimes. And that's what Babuji used to do.
Okay.
Okay. ಸರಿ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗೋಣ. We finish another 2 pages and maybe by around 104 we can stop. Now from meditation we move to meditative state. Your meditation should never end, said Daji. See the paradox. In the previous paragraph he said meditation should end at some point of time. Now he is saying that meditation should never end. So he's kind of talking about in opposite directions. His words punctuated a long silence. Of course, this does not mean that you will never get up again, he continued. You cannot remain seated in meditation all day, but you can remain in meditative state throughout all your activities. Your life becomes a meditation, you see, a dynamic and ongoing one. It is meditation with open eyes. You are not seated in meditation, but you are meditating. So meditation with an open eyes. You are doing all the activities of the life, but yet internally you are meditating. In India, we have a concept called as Brahman. Traditionally, Brahman is akin to God. It is thought to be the ultimate reality or the supreme being, or whatever you may call it like to call it. Yet, if we examine the etymology, roots of the word, we uncover a different story. Brahman is derived from 2 words, 2 Sanskrit roots, Bruha and Man. Bruha means expansion. Man means thinking or contemplation. So Brahman literally means that which expands and contemplates. Let us step back for a moment. Do you remember how I described consciousness as a big circle? Yes, I said. The center of the circle represents the deepest core of our being, and the circumference stands for our external awareness, said Daji. A time comes when consciousness expands in both directions simultaneously towards the center and the circumference. That is Brahman in the true sense. It is expansion, but it's also thinking, because the mind which thinks exists behind the consciousness. So expansion of the consciousness in both the direction, along with aligned with contemplation, is Brahman. So most people think Brahman to be something other than what it really is. I said, yes, said Daji. We have applied our human understanding to something which is beyond understanding. You see, one of the reasons that Socrates was executed was that he proclaimed the gods to be human creations. He observed that the gods, as they were presented, had human characteristics. Therefore, he concluded that they were human projections. While that was going on in Greece, the same thing was happening in India. It still is, in fact. And not just in India, it's a peculiar facet of human nature that we assign human qualities to everything, including God. You see, the Sanskrit word for the individual being is Atman. Atman literally means that which moves and thinks. So you can say the definition of an individual is very close to the ancients' definition of God. The only distinction between them is one expands while the other one moves. So Brahman means expansion and contemplation. Atman means movement and thinking. Why are they so similar? The reason is that people thought God must be like us, but greater. If the individual being sees something that moves, then God, being greater, will expand. For expansion is far greater than mere movement. So they took the ultimate and named it as Brahman according to their human understanding. In reality, Brahman is not the ultimate. Please underline this. Brahman is not the ultimate. It is a state in which consciousness contemplates and expands. The ultimate is far beyond this. The ultimate is changeless, so it cannot expand, contract, or contemplate. Please underline. The ultimate is changeless. So neither it can expand, nor contract, nor it can contemplate. So in the meditative flow state, our consciousness exhibits the qualities of Brahman, I said, but that is not the ultimate state. Correct, said Daji. We have to go beyond Brahman. And that there is a term for that too. It is called as Parabrahman, which means beyond Brahman. And that is the state of Parabrahman is also just another stage in our journey. It is not the end. The meditative state keeps on evolving, you see. It grows finer and subtler until it dissolves into the ultimate state. But it cannot evolve until we create it in the first place. Daji paused for reflection. I don't think anybody will be truly satisfied with meditation until the effect becomes permanent. Of what use is profound meditation if it does not transform your daily experience? Otherwise, meditation is like drawing water from a well using a leaky bucket. You are unable to retain it and carry it into your life. How do you make the effects of the meditation carry over? I asked. So I think we shall just probably stop here. 105 page number. We shall continue tomorrow from 105. Okay. So another 1 or 2 minutes is there. Any questions we can take here before we go? So that's why when we read Babuji's books, we read about Brahmand Mandala, then Parabrahmand Mandala, then Prapanna, then Prabhu Prapanna, then Prabhu, then the central region, and then the Bhuma. So our ancients did not have that conception of the Brahman as we are having. They thought Brahman is something bigger and that is worth having. So there are multiple Upanishads which talk about Brahman as being the ultimate state. But it's only in 1 or 2 places, one in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and other one is Chandogya Upanishad, that Bhuma is talked about as the ultimate. So just keep this in mind. Okay. No more questions. If there are no more questions, or if there are questions, we can take it sometime tomorrow. If you kind of want time to contemplate and come up with something. So we can discuss it tomorrow along with whatever the rest of the part that we are going to cover. Okay. So I thank everyone for having joined, and we will catch up again tomorrow evening. Vidya sister.
Thank you, Guru.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, brother.